You're alright, fuckers and fuckettes. Now, you know, aside from the fact that Mohammed was a kitty perv, these are my thoughts on Islam in general. Not really all of them, but just detailing a couple of focused points on Muhammad himself. Or Mohammed, whatever the fuck you want to call him. Aside from the fact that he was a fucking kitty perv, married a 6-year-old, supposedly didn't bang her until she was 9, but still, either way, that makes him a kitty perv. Which makes him scum in my book. But, you know, and I mean, he promoted a lot of really fucked up ideas, like, you know, lying to everyone until, you know, Takia, till all the world is Islam. Yeah, well, there's a bunch of other hadith too that kind of indicate that this fucker was mentally ill. And I'm not kidding you. I mean, there's hadiths where he's talking to trees, jinns, flying outside the universe and returning after a few hours, and talking to stones, and I mean, 1400 years ago, they didn't have medication for shit like this. Or maybe he was on some really good medication, you know, because, I mean, I dropped acid back in the 80s when I was a kid. Yeah, in my 20s, I tried that shit. Hell, I tried that shit in the 70s when I was still in my teens. But, you know, so maybe they had acid back then, but they didn't have anything to treat mental illness back then. But the way he behaved during his supposed revelations, you know, I mean, think about it. Epileptic, they do that, you know, sweat, they hear bell noises, ringing noises, they're rolling on the floor, shit like that. And another thing, you know, he's in that cave Hira, you know, the supposed site of his first revelation. Now that's a really, really tiny, tiny place. So staying there for long periods of time, that might have reduced the oxygen content of the cave and led to oxygen deprivation. God damn, that looks good. Ooh, they have some kind of a walkathon thing over here on the intercoastal man. For every 50 fat chicks, there's 1 or 2 good looking ones. This is worth seeing. But, you know, so anyway, I mean, it would lead to, by being in that tiny little space, removing the oxygen, creating CO2. You know, he could have suffered from oxygen deprivation. Now that will disorient a person, that'll lead to hallucinations, and that could lead to some of the sweating too, because that is one of the symptoms. And the angel Gabriel, you know, either that's like, I don't know, a lie, an outright lie that he made up to kickstart his own cult so he could control everybody, or more likely it was probably a hallucination due to oxygen deprivation. Or he might have just been mentally ill all the way down the road, and any way you cut this up, I very seriously doubt he was any kind of a messenger of God. Of course, you know, the Muslims get all pissy when you say God instead of Allah. Well, you know, I mean, technically, his name's also Yahweh and several others. So what's it matter? But anyway, that's my 2 thoughts on Muhammad himself. My 2 cents, whatever you want to call it. And, well, that's my opinion. You can say anything you want. You ain't gonna change it. I'll holler at y'all fuckers and fuckheads later.